It was still around a week and a half before the Chunin Exams final round, and for Team 10's first training day of the week, they switched venues. Mostly due to the fact that Asuma had to take a personal day on that day. Ino kept insisting, however, that he was just taking the day to do something for Kurenai's birthday. That prompted Naruto and Shikamaru to wonder why she knew when Kurenai's birthday was. However, due to that, instead of meeting at their training field, they met at Shikamaru's home in his clan compound for a change of scenery to keep things from getting stale. It was definitely a change. The Naru compound was set in the woods at the edge of the Leaf Village, and had houses built in spaces cleared with the tiniest amount of effort. You could look out a window and see a row of trees 5 feet from the houses sometimes, depending on whose house it was. The compound also had the narrowest roads leading through it, and the wall that separated it from the rest of the village didn't even have their clan crest emblazoned on it like any of their other clans in the village did. Lazy, the whole lot of them. It did help the deer that they raised all throughout the area, so that could have always been the reason for it. It was doubtful though. At the moment, they were in the woods near Shikamaru's home, running through walkthroughs of their formations using a trio of Naruto's clones as dummies to imitate the responses of their opponents in the instance of a team battle during the exam tournament. After a few hours of going through whatever possible looks that Shikamaru figured they'd see from potential opponents, the team filtered back to his house for a rest of sorts. Despite the rather mundane practice, Naruto was beaming at the moment. He had been that way all day, and no one had figured to ask him why until then because he was usually pretty chipper most of the time. This was ridiculous though. Being the quote-unquote host of the team, once they took a spot sitting out in front of Shikamaru's house for a break, he took it upon himself to bring up the topic.
So Naruto, why are you so happy today? It's not like I even came up with anything new today. We were just going over older stuff.
Naruto turns his attention to his teammate, still grinning widely. Oh, it's not that. It's just that, well, remember that little problem with that seal of mine that I had? The time thing? Both Ino and Shikamaru nodded. I fixed it, he said, sounding quite pleased with himself.
You fixed it?
Shikamaru said, raising an eyebrow.
You mean you can hold off a Sani for 3 minutes now to do it by yourself?
Naruto blinked before rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly.
No, but the 3 minutes isn't an issue anymore. I just sped the whole thing up.
To the others, it sort of seemed like he was hesitant to talk about just what he had done. Ino looked at him in a confused manner.
I thought you said sealing jutsu was set in certain ways of performing things. How in the world did you just speed it up? Didn't you say doing things the wrong way with sealing jutsu could kill you or turn you inside out or something?
I did, Naruto said, looking away from inquisitive eyes.
But I didn't change the way that the seal works. I just did something else.
Like, change the source that's actually powering the seal. The seal was designed to be powered by using human chakra as a generator, but chakra was chakra, and it would all work in this instance.
It's a good thing Perfect Sensei's been trying to train me to use it for the last few weeks or so.
He thought to himself somewhat bitterly, even if he wasn't necessarily thinking that way at the time at all. Flashback. 3 days earlier, 2 weeks until Chunin Exams final round. For the last few meetings Naruto had with Jiraiya, the man had been trying to stir some way for Naruto to draw upon the Nine-Tails chakra in an effort to teach him how to harness or at least tap into it before the finals. But it was rougher going than either of them thought it would be. Jiraiya thought that with the way that most jinchuriki recorded history were, Naruto could already use the Nine-Tails chakra. He just couldn't control it well. Most jinchuriki were constantly fighting about to keep their powers in check. Naruto seemed to be the opposite. He didn't know anything about what the Nine-Tails influence provided him until he realized that he had been using his chakra against Haku in the Land of Waves. The last resort for Jiraiya to think of a way to access the Nine-Tails chakra was based off Naruto's description of how the battle with Haku went, and he forced Naruto to cut out all the embellishments to make himself look good. He needed the truth out of the blonde if he was going to figure out what to do. And according to Naruto, he had taken quite a beating from Haku while he had been isolated from the rest of his team inside her dome of ice, so he was worn down. In addition to that, Haku put his teammates into a state of false death, making Naruto believe that she had killed them, and his emotions had already been fuzzy for the entire battle with everything that had happened beforehand, so that pushed him into a rage. Strong negative emotions and being pushed to his physical limits brought out the beast, so to speak. Yeah, it was going to be easy to work with that, but it didn't mean that he was going to like what he was going to have to do though, and neither would Naruto in all actuality. For that day's session of physical work, Jiraiya told Naruto that they were going to forego his training to hold him off in combat. Naruto would instead have to achieve an objective against him, and Jiraiya's method of motivating Naruto and deciding that a straight-up battle was a good idea was that if he could achieve the objective and defeat him, then there wouldn't be anyone else that Naruto couldn't defeat. The other sticking point was that Naruto was officially allowed to go all out in the battle. Not only was he allowed to, he was expected to. Nothing less would do. The thing about Naruto going all out here though, was that you didn't realize that you were out of your league until you actually took the chance to step up to play with the heavy hitters. He had been smacked around by Asuma before, just like the rest of his team, but he had never really had his head kicked in by someone that was head and shoulders, hell, entire torso above him. Not until then anyway. So eventually, Naruto did get rolling, and he did start fighting as hard as he possibly could. It was too bad that his best just wasn't good enough. It wasn't even close. Naruto's body collided with the trunk of a tree, bouncing off and hitting the ground with a deadweight thud. He lay motionless for a moment before slowly stirring and getting back up to his feet. His face was a bruised, blood-stained mess, and his clothes were completely wrecked. He thought his nose had been broken earlier, but another punch he had taken might have put it back into place later since he could breathe out of it again, despite the fact that it was pouring blood like a faucet that wasn't turned off all the way.
You heard what I said, kid, Jiraiya said in a grim voice as he held up a bell attached to a string between his thumb and index finger. You can't leave until you take this from me, so stop pussyfooting around and fight to win, he demanded. The immediate thing Naruto wanted to do was yell at him that he had been fighting to win the entire time. Jiraiya had taken his weapon nearly right from the start and had almost broken his hand in doing so. Since then, no matter how many clones Naruto made, Jiraiya eradicated them all with extreme prejudice. He had turned half of their usual training field into a swamp and had submerged and drowned the clones. He had shot a massive fireball bigger than anything Sasuke had ever conjured and had charred most of the other half of the field. And he summoned a trio of large toads to completely demolish him in conjunction once he had apparently gotten tired of beating 7 shades of shit out of Naruto with his hands and feet. Well,
Jiraiya said expectantly as he walked out in front of his summoned trio of toads, all of them looking at Naruto with the same deadly serious expression as their summoner. Suddenly, Jiraiya's face twisted into one of anger.
Are you really just going to stand there and let me kill you? Or are you actually going to fight me? You're like a helpless infant right now. For Kami's sake, do you think any real ninja would hold back on you just because you look so pitiful right now? Never giving up won't do you any goddamn good if you've only got the power of a rodent to back it up with.
Well, what the hell do you want me to do about it, you old bastard?
Naruto shouted back at him, glaring although one of his eyes was nearly swollen shut.
I've done everything. I'm out of weapons and I can't get close to you unless you run up to hit me yourself. Tell me what you want from me,
he shouted, losing his temper and running directly at Jiraiya in a desperate attempt to hit him somehow, to make him feel what he was feeling at the moment, any way he could. Before he got close, a tongue wrapped itself around Naruto's waist and jerked him towards one of the larger toads, prepared to give him a powerful shot once it reeled him in. Naruto grit his teeth in anger and fear, knowing that he didn't want his clock cleaned by that toad again. As he was being pulled in, Naruto linked his hands by the bottom of his palms and tucked them back to prepare for a double palm thrust as he gathered wind chakra in them. Before he was pulled close to him to try his jutsu that would damn sure make that toad pay for trying to beat on him some more, he was kicked in the side of the head and sent flying from the grip of the toad's tongue, through the brush at the end of the clearing, and ending with him landing in the shallow water nearby that usually had women in it that Jiraiya peeked on. Naruto wasn't that lucky for there to be witnesses today though. Jiraiya stared at Naruto after landing from his kick, watching the boy try to pick himself up face first out of the water.
That the jutsu of yours is made by accident?
He questioned, remembering what Naruto was about to use on his toad.
That's more like it. Fight to end a life that's trying to take yours. No one's gonna come save you, so take it into your own hands, kid.
He then proceeded to swallow the bell.
Remember what I said. Take this bell from me or you're not leaving. I'm a man of my word, and I don't feel like staying out here all night. So I'll just have to make sure that you can never leave again. The killing intent radiating off Jiraiya was palpable.
You can't do that,
Naruto said, trying to get up weakly once more.
You can't just kill me here, no matter what.
Jiraiya just stared Naruto down.
I could kill you here and be gone from the entire village within 5 minutes. You don't meet with your team for the first meeting of the week until tomorrow, so no one would find you until at least midday tomorrow. Do you know how difficult it would be for anyone to find me and actually make me pay for anything that I do? I won't let a loudmouth weakling be my student, so prove that you're not dead weight or I'll literally turn you into dead weight. I have a reputation to keep that you're not gonna stain.
Naruto grit his teeth as he tried to keep his legs from shaking. He could barely stand up despite his ability to heal quickly, and Jiraiya's killing intent was crushing. He had never felt it directed at him from someone so much stronger than himself before. Jiraiya made 2 hand seals, and leaves began to kick up around them, obscuring Jiraiya from Naruto's view until he vanished altogether from his sight. Naruto was about to take what he saw to be an opening, and attempted to use the body flicker himself to obscure his own movements, so that he could leave the area as fast as possible. But Jiraiya's voice stopped him and put him back on the defensive.
You still don't get it.
Naruto turned around and found Jiraiya standing right there, holding his own machete at the ready. Naruto attempted to move, but Jiraiya's arm came down before he could do so, leaving the blonde helpless to defend until a figure came between them both. Jiraiya's swing drew a large spray of blood from whoever had stepped in front of Naruto, and the figure dropped backwards into the water. Looking down at the figure, Naruto's face twisted in horror as he saw Iruka laying at his feet, a deep wound across his throat, where he had intervened and took the damage for Naruto. His blood was draining into the water and turning it red as it rolled along with the flow of the stream. The man's eyes seemed to be straining in pain for a moment before they finally went dull and dead.
All Naruto could do was look up at Jiraiya, who was still holding his bloody machete.
The man didn't seem to have any remorse whatsoever for his actions.
You see what barking gets you when you don't know the first thing about what we ninja do? Now you've made poor Ruka die before his time. But don't worry, you'll be following him in a moment," he said as he lifted the weapon again. Naruto's eyes were still locked onto Jiraiya, as tears started coming out of them, and those very same eyes turned red in the process, as his canines and fingernails enlarged, and his whisker marks deepened. Before Jiraiya's arm could lower, Naruto let out an ear-splitting shout of anger and agony, and knocked him away with the pure force of the red chakra radiating off him threateningly. As Jiraiya was sent flying away from Naruto, his body disappeared like a specter, as did the body of Haruka at Naruto's feet. Nearby in the trees, Jiraiya watched as the Nine-Tails chakra began radiating off Naruto. Once it began to generate from his body, Jiraiya seemed to let out a sigh of relief. "Demonic illusion, hell viewing technique. Sorry, kid. At least you managed to break it."
He knew whatever Naruto saw in that genjutsu had pushed his exhausted body over the edge, and now Jiraiya had to solve it in case Naruto went berserk. He dropped down from his hiding place, and the splash of his feet in the stream turned Naruto to him. Jiraiya seemed unintimidated at the sight of the power exuding off of Naruto. He seemed more apologetic than anything, especially once he saw the tears on Naruto's face. Jiraiya simply extended his arms in a wide gesture as if he were inviting Naruto to take a free shot at him, not caring what he did for revenge. Naruto just stared him down, his teeth bared as he seemed to visibly strain against charging over and beating Jiraiya to a pulp.
"Well, you did it, kid. Remember what this feels like. This is the Nine-Tails chakra. Everything you're feeling right now, I want you to learn how to harness that," Jiraiya said with a weak smile on his face before letting the expression drop. "Are you gonna come over here and rip me apart for that genjutsu? For beating the hell out of you the way I did?" The look on Naruto's face showed that he was struggling with the decision until he finally shook his head in the negative, wiping his eyes at the same time. The inhuman chakra flowing from it faded away, leaving Naruto's normal physical features prominent once more.
I just want to go home,"
he said before turning around to walk away. He didn't know what to say. All he did know was that he wanted this day to end.
"Naruto, wait,"
Jiraiya said, getting Naruto to stop before he was able to take a few steps away from him. He turned around with a tired look on his face. Jiraiya stuck his fingers down his throat and basically choked back up the bell. It floated down the stream towards Naruto, directing his attention towards it as he took the effort to bend down and pick it up.
"I'm a man of my word."
Naruto nodded and put the bell in his pocket as a silence fell over the two of them again. Only the running water and the birds crawling in the sunset making any noise in the area. The Sannin sighed.
"I know you probably hate me right now, but I did one of the only things I could think of to get you to trigger the Nine-Tails chakra and keep you relatively safe at the same time. If you don't want me to train you anymore, that's your choice. If you allow me to keep training you though, I'd be more than happy to. But for what it's worth, you did great today. There's nothing embarrassing about calling you my student at all. I'm not even sure if the fourth Hokage could have taken what you did and kept from killing me afterwards."
"Yeah, sure,"
Naruto said quietly before he stopped and looked at his hands, without turning around to face Jiraiya.
"The only reason the Nine-Tails even gave me the chakra so that I'd have the power to make you pay for beating me up, and the genjutsu. If I'd done that, if I tried to beat you to death, then I would have given in to it."
He dropped his hands and started walking again, to look for the last place his weapon had actually been.
"I'm never letting the Nine-Tails get any influence on me. I'm the one in control here."
As he walked away, he could hear faint and dark chuckling in the back of his mind in response to his thoughts.
"I'll help you for now, boy, because you dying wouldn't be beneficial to me. One day you will be weak, though. Too weak to put up any sort of pitiful defense against me. In the end, you're still just a human, and just like any other human, if you have enough hate or darkness in your heart, you won't be able to keep yourself from holding me back."
It was only a matter of time. End of flashback. The break had ended for Team 10, but they didn't venture too far from Shikamaru's house, as the practice was beginning to wind down anyway. Naruto was in a circle surrounded by 5 clones that all took turns going through slower than full speed motions of sparring with the machete, just to get the feel of fighting multiple armed opponents at once. In case the team from the Cloud made it out for the first round against Tenten's team, he would need to be ready for that possibility since they all had blades of their own. The bell key had been given by Jiraiya after the whole ordeal. Given because there was no way he could have possibly taken it by himself, was tied at the end of his machete's hilt to a chain, as a reminder of just what it took to possess the Nine-Tails power. Naruto had enough of working with his clones, and jumped out of the circle, and the clones dispelled themselves in puffs of smoke as he did so. As this happened, Shikamaru looked up at the orange-colored sky.
"Alright, I think we should call it a day for now,"
he said, getting Ino and Naruto's attention. "We still have daylight," Naruto said, almost whining at having to stop for the evening. "Why are we even stopping now?" Shikamaru pointed up at the sky.
"Don't you know? It's like 8 p.m. right now. Sun says the best time to take a nap before you go to sleep at night,"
he said matter-of-factly. Naruto opened his mouth to argue, but his stomach beat him to the punch with a rather loud grumble. "Well, I guess I am pretty hungry right now," he laughed rather sheepishly. "Fine, I'm going home then." Actually, he was going to see if Iruka wanted to eat. After what had gone down with Jiraiya's genjutsu, he wanted to hang out with his old teacher more in case something like that actually did happen in the future. He hadn't told anyone of what occurred for multiple reasons, the Nine Tails being a subject but being one. Another reason being that he didn't believe Jiraiya had wanted to hurt him. Still though.
There you go, Goldie-kun.
Ino chirped brightly as she socked him lightly on the shoulder.
No need to kill yourself to get in every little scrap of training you can. 30 minutes of partying around isn't going to change anything. Now walk me out of here. I'm tired,
she insisted. Walk you out of here, Naruto muttered out of earshot.
You live less than a mile outside of the Nara compound. I live all the way on the other side of the village. What do I look like? A bodyguard?
As a ninja, he technically could be called upon to be a bodyguard, but that was not the point. The point was that at the moment, he wasn't a bodyguard, let alone Ino's bodyguard. Ino waved to Shikamaru as she and Naruto began to walk through the forest path leading from his home.
Later, Shikamaru. Tell your mama said hi whenever she gets back, okay?
Shikamaru just waved weakly at both of them before turning around to head into the house.
Yeah. I'll see both of you troublesome blondes later.
After getting out of the forest that Shikamaru's clan populated, the rather well-to-do looking street that it turned into split into two paths. Ino stood frozen in place as Naruto began walking down one of the roads to go home.
Goldie-kun, where exactly do you think you're going? You're supposed to be walking me home, remember?
Naruto turned around to look at Ino and managed to peer down the other unused street side that he had chosen to not take. The walls lining the side of that particular road eventually began to be covered in a certain design on them, something that Naruto decided to comment on since he had seen that design repeatedly, mostly at Ino's flower shop.
Ino-chan, your clan compound is right there.
It's literally 100 yards away. Puffing her cheeks out, Ino disputed this as if she were informing Naruto on something obvious.
That's not the point, it's just what you do. As a gentleman, you have to make sure the lady gets home safely.
Naruto gave her a look with a raised eyebrow and pointed down the street.
It's right there. I could probably run to your house in the next 30 seconds if I knew where it was.
Refusing to budge on the matter, Ino put her foot down as she crossed her arms over her chest.
Well then, that's another reason for you to walk me home. So you actually know where my house is. You know, for future reference.
What future reference? Naruto asked/shouted while waving his arms indignantly, not particularly caring if any passerby thought he was insane. It probably wasn't that far removed from what they thought of him in the first place, actually.
If I need to know where your house is and you're not there to tell me, I'll ask Shikamaru.
He was really hungry at the moment. Being hungry made Naruto cranky.
You're unbelievable, Goldie.
Ino thought to herself with a twitching eye.
Was that too subtle for him? I thought it was obvious what I was hinting at.
She let out a sigh and shook her head before walking down her street towards her compound.
Someone needs a little more seasoning. What was that?
Naruto said as he almost didn't hear her speak.
Nothing,
she replied, waving over her shoulder at him.
But I'm gonna make you pay for that tomorrow during practice.
Ino turned around and pointed at Naruto, as if her finger was some sort of firearm, while she took aim at him by grasping her forearm with her other arm.
You can't run from me forever, you know.
She finished with a firing motion and a wink before turning around to go about her own way.
Run from what?
Are you talking about a new jutsu? Naruto said questioningly before shrugging it off as Ino being Ino. Whatever. I'll see you tomorrow, Ino-chan, he said before making a ram seal and leaving the area concealed by a puff of smoke, leaving behind a platinum blonde shaking her head in mild amusement. The next day, Team 10 training ground. Ino was grinning at Asuma, and pretty much had been all morning during downtime. Okay, Ino, what do you want? The man asked in an exasperated voice.
Nothing, Asuma-sensei,
she replied.
I just want to know how yesterday with Kurenai-sensei went.
Hearing Kurenai's name unexpectedly due to not really listening to what was going on in the moment, Naruto was about to light up a cigarette, dropped it from his mouth onto the ground as he whipped his head around rapidly in an attempt to locate the red-eyed lady to save himself from another lecture about smoking. Shikamaru shook his head with a smirk on his face at Naruto's reaction.
Kurenai isn't here, Naruto. Ino's just talking about her. You don't have to be scared about getting scolded again.
I'm not afraid of Kurenai-sensei trying to bust me for smoking again, Naruto said confidently. What's she gonna do? Make me smoke another carton? Good. I still have all the ones from the last time she made me do that, since I don't even smoke that much. He then heard Asuma let out a groan. What's up, sensei? Since Ino asked, Asuma said, directing a pointed look at the innocent-looking Ino. Yesterday with Kurenai was fine. Then we started talking about the finals of the Chunin exams and got into an argument over whose team was better. So we made a side bet. Either you guys go further than teammate in the tournament, or more of you get promoted out of this than them. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow.
So what's the bet?
He asked, wondering if it would even be worth his while to put forth effort to bother winning for Asuma. Don't worry about it, Asuma replied coolly without missing a beat, keeping concealed. It was just like the way he handled most things with Kurenai, and the kids weren't dumb. They knew it was more than a comrades thing, and more than a relationship as general colleagues as well. They just weren't sure how far it went. and the two boys on the team weren't really listening to Ino's prattling theories on secret relationships anytime soon. At least not until more facts were brought on board.
It wouldn't be anything you'd be interested in anyway.
Naruto raised his hand and chimed in.
Well, what about me?
Asuma looked down at Naruto as if he were actually thinking about it. Because of who's been giving you personal training for the last month or so, I'd say in a few years you'd appreciate it. But for now, no.
Naruto was giving him a squint-eyed look of confusion before Asuma finally pointed at him. He went wide-eyed before nodding dumbly.
Good boy.
He ignored Shikamaru's mumbling of troublesome and let the matter drop. Deciding to change the subject and speaking on his training with Jiraiya, Naruto spoke up again.
Asuma-sensei, could you go ahead and show me the next step in controlling wind chakra?
He asked, putting his hands together in a beseeching fashion. Asuma scratched his head, not sure how he was going to explain this to the kid.
Damn, Naruto, you've got a funny time of asking stuff, huh?
There was a week left until they were set out for the exam's final rounds. He was aware of the fruits that Naruto's shadow clone technique could breed in the instance of speeding up his training, but this was less than a week to work with. Even if he could have focused fully on each day, it wouldn't be finished in time. And even if he did, then what? All that would do was open a door for him to control higher level techniques and allow him to begin creating his own wind-based ninjutsu. Once he got the proper way to do so down-packed, it simply wasn't practical at the moment.
There's just no time, Naruto. Asuma said to him. I know about what you can do with your clones, but even then, there just isn't enough time for you to get it down. Even if you did, it wouldn't help you in actual matches.
He saw the boy visibly deflate and put a hand on his shoulder.
I didn't say I wouldn't help you out at all, though. I never said that you'd never learn how to do the last step. It's just that now isn't the time for it.
Naruto cocked his head to the side curiously. So you're gonna help me out? A grin spread his face. How?
Freaking Brett.
Asuma said as he ruffled Naruto's hair before asking another question.
But I thought you were learning a special technique from Lord Jiraiya.
By special technique, he meant the Nine-Tails chakra. Naruto figured that someone needed to be kept in the know of how he was trying to access the Nine-Tails chakra, and that was Asuma. Thus, he told him.
I learned it.
Naruto said simply, leaving it at that, his eyes turning away from Asuma as he did so. That was something he would have to look into later. But for now, seeing the kid so out of character just didn't seem right to him.
We'll have a move for you that you might be able to use.
Is it Flying Swallow?
Naruto asked, excitedly interrupting him. He really couldn't extend his blade's reach the way Asuma could, any further than the little inch that the coating of wind chakra provided his weapon. Because simply coating the blade in wind chakra wasn't the actual technique.
Seriously, what's with you in that jutsu?
Asuma said, shaking his head.
No, it's not Flying Swallow. I've got something new for you altogether. A very old move of mine, actually. I can't do it anymore with my equipment. Your machete should work just fine, actually. Especially with that new little customization you added on to it.
He said, flicking the chain and the bell at the end of it on Naruto's machete. Naruto looked down at the weapon curiously.
It's just a chain, Asuma-sensei. It's no big deal.
He drew the weapon out of the sheath and held it up to look at the chain that he had attached to it, only for Asuma to more or less snatch it out of his hand.
Boy!
Quiet down, Naruto.
Asuma said, dangling the sharp blade by the chain at the end, surprised that he'd actually use something sturdy instead of the cheap materials he expected.
Yeah, this is perfect. Now let me show you how this jutsu works. You can get your clones cracking on how to get it down.
2 days later, 1 week until Chunin Exams' final round, Jiraiya sat by himself in the corner of a bar, drinking quietly with an air of contemplation around him. Despite his status as a living legend, he wasn't approached by any of the shinobi in the bar. He was just giving off that aura that he didn't feel like being bothered at the moment. Which was why there was some surprise in the place when the chair across from him was filled by another person.
I didn't think you were one for drinking in the daytime, Asuma.
He commented dryly at the bearded jonin in front of him.
You're one to talk, Lord Jiraiya.
Asuma replied in a joking manner to the man.
Aren't you supposed to be a role model that every shinobi should look up to? Who said I wasn't? I'm a fine upstanding ninja.
Jiraiya said before deflating back to his previous state of more or less sulking. Asuma sat with him in silence before finally breaking it by speaking again.
So, are you gonna make me ask or are you just gonna come out with it and tell me?
He said expectantly.
Naruto's been all weird since after Wednesday. That was the last day he was with you, right? And from how he was talking with me the other day, it sounds like he isn't training with you any longer. So what happened? I got him to activate the Nine-Tails chakra. This time he was able to control it. Jiraiya said plainly before getting a proud inflection in his voice. He did great actually. Better than I expected. Since he had expected Naruto to try and turn him into a stain on the earth after the genjutsu had been broken. The most he had hoped for was that Naruto would have pulled back from trying to kill him enough to get satisfaction out of beating him to a pulp and leaving it at that. Otherwise, he'd have had to seal his demonic chakra away for a while. Asuma's eyes widened. That's great! He was confused then when Jiraiya shook his head. It's not great? I don't really want you to hear about how I did it. I didn't even bother telling Sarutobi-sensei what I did since he probably saw it through the damn crystal ball anyway.
Jiraiya muttered as he took another sip of his drink and shook his head again.
Minato did a fantastic job on the seal. Really top-notch stuff. Only the most extreme conditions can get the kid to pull it out. Exhaustion, fear, anger, despair, pain. Things like that make it easier for him to draw upon the Nine-Tails chakra.
Asuma remembered Naruto's little episode in the Land of Waves. That was the best point he'd heard as to how Naruto drew upon the chakra by far. But he then knew where Jiraiya was going with his explanation.
So in order to get him to draw upon the chakra again, I pushed him to his physical limits. And I can tell you one thing at least. If anyone beats one of the kid during the tournament the way I did the other day, then I'll be one surprised son of a bitch. Cause I kicked the hell out of him. And he kept conscious the entire time. Jiraiya said, sounding revolted with himself as he took another swig. Then I cast a genjutsu on him. Demonic illusion hell viewing technique. Asuma let out a low hiss, understanding the situation. Naruto sucks at genjutsu, he said quietly so that only he and Jiraiya could hear. The white-haired man nodded, having picked up on that fact after witnessing the effectiveness of it on Naruto. Whatever he saw had been something that really upset him. I guess we'll have to get started on teaching him how to break it then. Jiraiya let out a laugh that didn't have any humor behind it at all. I think that won't be all up to you, Asuma. After it was all over, I told the kid I didn't expect him to forgive me for what happened. He might have the capacity to forgive people that are close to him or people he thinks are friends, but tell me something. After he beat up that missing nin girl in the Land of Waves and they made up, did he trust her again after that? Asuma shook his head. He didn't untie her. He didn't even show his back to her a single time until he parted ways. Come to think of it, even when they thoroughly disarmed her on the way out of the Land of Waves, not only did Naruto never let Haku see his back, he didn't let her see Asuma's back. Just in case she would hold a grudge and attempt to take the man's life for killing Zabuza. Wow, he didn't even notice that until right then. Naruto is a pretty trusting kid, but apparently if you broke that trust, you were on his shit list until further notice. Did he say anything to you? Asuma asked Jiraiya, because he wouldn't even say anything about it to me. He just said, yeah, sure, and left. Jiraiya informed him. He seemed pretty mixed up about the whole thing. Letting out a deep sigh, he continued to talk. I'm not much for praying or anything, but if the kid actually wants me to help again after the other day, I think that might have to be something of a miracle. Asuma just leaned back in his chair and placed a cigarette in his mouth. Well, you might as well try and talk to him sooner or later. It's obvious you don't hate Naruto. He probably knows that. You can probably get back in his good graces. But if you'd wait, that'd help me out. I need his head clear for when we head back up to the Land of Iron for the finals. Jiraiya watched Asuma light up a cigarette and take a breath, and had a flashback to his work with Naruto over the last month, bringing deep laughter from the man that confused Asuma. Oh, sorry, it's just that it's kind of obvious where he gets it from now. There's nothing quite like seeing 40 shadow clones all sitting cross-legged on the grass glaring down at practice seals with lit cigarettes in their mouths. He then had another thought, and his grin turned lecherous. Come to think of it, with that shadow clone ability of his, he might be able to conduct research better than I ever did without the threat of repercussions for it. Both Jiraiya and Asuma sat there thinking about being able to use Shadow Clone the way Naruto did for less than pure-minded reasons, before yet another thought hit Jiraiya like a bolt of lightning, and he created one that immediately ran out of the bar faster than anyone could follow. Asuma completely understood, and was officially never so grateful that he knew how to properly make a Shadow Clone. At this point, he only wished he could make master not something like a student could. Damn it! His old man would probably say no once he questioned him on why he wanted to learn it, and Naruto probably wouldn't do it either, at least without Asuma coughing up Flying Swallow first. Naruto sneezed and wiped his nose, frowning deeply and throwing the explosive tag he was preparing away to the side. God damn it, he yelled once he realized that he had just wasted his last strip of sealing paper by messing it up with that sneeze. On his day off, and following some time spent at Shio's house helping her recatalog her books, and time spent hanging out with Shikamaru and Choji doing a whole lot of nothing, he had taken to just getting his affairs in order for the next week, since by Thursday his team would be setting out with the other finalists to the Land of Iron. One of these affairs saw to it that he was merely hanging out in the woods to make an abundant supply of explosive tags, because you can never have enough explosives, and in Naruto's own personal opinion, enough explosives could fix any problem. Deciding that he had spent enough time just sitting there, and that he might as well take some time to go grocery shopping since he still had free time, Naruto let out a large burst of his chakra with his sonar jutsu to see how close he was to town. Once he did, however, he heard a shriek that set him off, and once he felt the signature behind the person that had let it out, "I see you, mother!" Naruto shouted before swiftly moving into action. "Nobody gets the drop on Uzumaki Naruto!" He yelled before he said something low as an afterthought. That much. What did her sister see in that weird blonde kid? It had been a question she'd been asking to herself for an entire year, and her sister as well, even though she never got an answer from her. All her sister would do whenever she questioned her on the matter was turn red and clam up. In some cases, she would try to stammer out denial of the fact that she was somewhat into a guy, but that just solidified that she indeed was if she was embarrassed about it. Her sister was so nice. Timid, but nice, and there seemed to be no particular reason that she would find anything attractive about the weird blonde kid. He wasn't that good looking, but then again it wasn't like he was ugly. The thing about him being kind of short wasn't that big of a deal breaker. Those whisker marks on his face did look exotic, and his blue eyes were brimming with emotion that she didn't see much when she looked in the eyes of her clan. And he didn't seem to be that smart from what she had seen upon running into him in the past, with him wandering the forest in the Nara compound a few months back and muttering about how he couldn't find his sensei. But then again, he was working on sealing jutsu as she watched him. From what she knew of her own clan's dabbling in the art, it was very complicated to say the least. So he couldn't really be that dumb, right? He didn't look like a very effective ninja either, and she heard that he was a rookie from the buzz around the town.
On the other hand, though, that same buzz was saying that he was a part of one of the lead teams that were about to head to the Land of Iron to compete in the final rounds of the Chunin Exams, along with her sister's team. That had to mean that either he was just as good or better, or he had one hell of a team to help him get that far. He also had very unusual chakra, and a lot of it. Seriously, this guy had a lot of chakra, a whole lot of chakra. Okay, so there was something about this guy after all. And she had to admit, he was rather entertaining though when he sneezed and yelled after screwing up his explosive tag. She almost started laughing when she saw that. Almost, because if she did, then she would have blown her cover. Even from this range, her Kekkei Genkai allowed her to spy on him. Hey, she hadn't been placed in the academy yet, so she had to take training into her own hands outside of what her father could do. Otherwise, she'd be lazy. And maybe if she could find out what her sister liked so much about him, she could come up with some way to help her get him. She deserved that much since she had to admit their father had been rather cold to her a few months back after she had graduated. She hoped he wouldn't be like that once she entered the academy. Then again, she couldn't just let her mind wander. She had a mission, self-presented of course, to do. And just as she thought that, from the boy she was watching, a blinding ripple of chakra burst from his body, and her ability to see chakra itself became a bite in the ass. Since her Kekkei Genkai witnessed it, she saw the equivalent of a flash bomb going off in her eyes. Again, him and that damn move of his had managed to get her in the past.
I see you, mother.
There was also the fact that once he did it, he was always able to tell where she was at the time.
Nobody gets the drop on Uzumaki Naruto.
This wasn't good.
That much.
And Kami, her eyes hurt. Damn that bastard. She deactivated her dojutsu and tried to run. But unlike the last few times she tried to spy on him, he went too far into the forest for her to beat him back to town just by running away. She did her best, but he was so much faster than her. It wasn't a joke at all. And thus, she finally came face to face with Uzumaki Naruto and expected the worst. Huh? That was not the first thing she expected someone to say after catching the person that had been spying on them. Huh? Naruto was nearly beaming while he'd been chasing his would-be spy through the forest. He had a bone to pick with this person since after he had felt them skulking around him back before he got his basic elemental training in. It was a different feeling from the first person he had felt trying to spy on him, while he had first learned the jutsu, but it was similar enough that he had just figured that the person had changed and gotten a bit better like he had. This was not what he expected in the least. He pointed lamely at the person he'd managed to corner. "Why are you watching me train, little girl?" he asked somewhat nicely, though in a curious tone of voice. She was around Konohamaru's height, give or take an inch or so, and had long dark brown hair with bangs that went down her back. She wore dark blue shorts and a sleeveless dark blue v-neck, and a mesh shirt underneath that. The girl was currently rubbing her eyes as if they were irritated. He kinda wanted to make her stop so that she didn't hurt herself actually. She finally put her hands away and looked up at him with wide, pupilless eyes. She had an owlish expression on her face as she stared up at him, before realizing that she had been compromised and fell into a taijutsu stance, getting Naruto to tilt his head to the side in confusion.
Prepare yourself, Uzumaki Naruto! I won't let myself get captured by my target so easily.
It took Naruto a second to realize that she was going to try and take him on. "What? I'm not gonna fight you, you're miniature," he responded, gesturing with his hands to their size difference.
Then move aside and leave me to my own devices,
the little girl said placidly, but still holding up her stance. Naruto just gave her a deadpan stare in return. "Not when your own devices include spying on me. Now if you don't mind, could you tell me what you're here for?"
That's a secret I'll take to the grave,
she said seriously, getting Naruto to palm his face before her eyes suddenly changed. Her pupils became slightly visible, where before they were non-existent, and the veins around her eyes and temple area became bulged and visible.
Let's see how you like the Hyuga-style taijutsu, the feared gentle fist.
Hyuga, Naruto said, taking note of her features and name, and then the name of her clan technique just before she sprang into action and closed the distance on him.
Index finger thrust!
The little Hyuga girl shouted her right hand at Naruto's chest with her index and middle fingers extended. Hearing an attack from the girl, Naruto stepped back out of her range, but she kept coming forward with attacks, using her fingers for precise strikes that Naruto kept backstepping out of the way from. Finally sick of evading the girl, Naruto stepped back with his foot on the tree and started scaling said tree backwards, until he was firmly out of her reach, 15 feet off the ground so, staring down at her. "Stop trying to attack me already! I'm a ninja in your village. I'm on your side, you know." The little girl blushed in embarrassment, realizing that he was right. Not only could he not attack her since she was technically a civilian, not even in the academy yet, but he was actually an active member of the elite shinobi force. Trying to attack him was akin to treason. Hence, she stopped her attack and bowed low for forgiveness.
I am so sorry, Mr. Uzumaki. Please don't report me to Lord Hokage. I don't want to go to prison.
Naruto raised an eyebrow at the strange little girl and dropped to the ground where she was still bowing towards him. "Sarutobi Gigi isn't gonna send a little girl to jail just for messing around with me," he said, patting her on the head as he felt rather weird at the moment. Nobody bowed to him, and there was something very wrong with the fact that this little girl was doing. "So what's your name?"
Hyuga Hanabi.
He responded elegantly. This girl kinda reminded him of someone. Hyuga. Oh, she reminded him of that Neji kid with the aura of a jerk radiating off her. She was kinda quiet too. Like Hinata! Only she didn't seem shy at all. She could at least speak to him as if he didn't intimidate her.
You're into the final portion of the Chunin Exams next week, aren't you? My sister is as well.
Hearing that this little girl he had never met knew about his advancements so far on the Chunin Exams put a grin on Naruto's face, until you processed the other things she said. Wait, your sister? He knew only one female Hyuga, and there was only one of them in the tournament. You're Hinata's sister? Hanabi nodded in confirmation. Naruto narrowed his eyes at her. Have you been spawning me to try and help her with a strategy to beat me in case we face off in the tournament? He asked accusingly. Hanabi was about to more or less call him stupid in her own special way, but then she realized the way he discovered her in the past times where he had been aware of her presence could be construed as her spying on him.
No, that's not what I was doing, Mr. Uzumaki. Honest, I've never seen you train on any of your techniques. Well, other than your concentrated chakra pulse, of course.
My what? Naruto asked in confusion. He didn't have any technique like that.
Your concentrated chakra pulse!
Hanabi urged him as if he had let it slip his mind.
Of course, I probably have the name of the jutsu wrong, but it's pretty brilliant.
She insisted spiritedly. He didn't know that a Hyuga could get so excited about things. But then again, she couldn't have been any older than 8 years old.
I was looking directly at you with my Byakugan, and it was terrible. You released that wave of chakra from your body, and it felt like my eyes were on fire.
Hanabi's expression as she thought about his jutsu made Naruto just want to give her a hug. The effect of the little Hyuga girl's white eyes nearly quivering with tears as she remembered his chakra pulse was, in Naruto's opinion, completely adorable. Not that anyone would ever know that he felt that way about it. Guys didn't think that things were adorable. That word was expressly forbidden from the male vocabulary except for extreme circumstances. Jiraiya's book had reinforced this sentiment in one of its many run-on allusions to things that had nothing to do with sealing jutsu. Once again, Naruto placed his hand on the girl's head once he realized what she was talking about.
Oh, you mean chakra echolocation jutsu.
So it hurt your eyes, huh, little firecracker? Sorry about that, he said apologetically. Hanabi puffed her cheeks out of the nickname and shook her head to get his hand off of it. 8 years old or not, she was still a main branch Hyuga member, and she wasn't going to just take that.
It's fine,
she insisted haughtily before going back to normal once she saw that Naruto wasn't going to put his hand on her head for a third time.
But yes, your jutsu hurts my eyes. It's like you put me in them with chakra.
She rubbed them again because she could still see stars from Naruto's jutsu. He wanted to say that he was sorry, but it didn't seem like that was enough. Even though he couldn't tell what he had done wrong if someone had asked him why he felt guilty. There was only one thing he could do as far as he was concerned. You want to get something to eat? That seemed like a good way to apologize to him. In fact, feeding someone seemed like a great I'm sorry gesture. Hanabi stopped rubbing her eyes and looked at Naruto strangely before her stomach growled, and she nodded slowly. Free food was free food. An hour later, Ichiraku Ramen. Alright, yeah, we're starving to death. Right, Akamaru? Kiba said rather boisterously as he pushed open the curtains of the stand to enter, small white dog in his coat riding along. Once he did so, of course, he saw someone pretty familiar sitting up at the counter.
Hey, it's Naruto.
How's it going, man? Naruto turned around in his stool and saw Kiba and Akamaru grinning at him. Kiba? Akamaru? Hey, what are you guys doing here? Kiba shrugged and grabbed his seat next to Naruto at the counter. Well, we're hungry. This is a really good little stand, so why not eat here, eh? Akamaru let out a yap of agreement from the front of Kiba's coat, as he was panting rather excitedly. So why are you here?
Same as you.
Naruto said with a grin of his own on his face. It's my day off and I just wanted to grab some lunch. Also, it was the easiest place to take Hanabi for some lunch, and she agreed, since she hasn't been here before. Kiba's eyes widened slightly. Whoa, you're on a date? Part of him had to applaud that even during the training period, Naruto could find time to take a girl out. Naruto gave him a squinted-eyed look and shook his head slowly. No, that's weird. Hanabi's 7 years old, he said, gesturing to the little girl on the opposite side of him. That wasn't even paying attention to what he was saying, due to her eating that was reserved, yet still pretty rushed. This is Hanabi. Say hey, little firecracker. Hearing Naruto's nickname for her put a tick mark on her head, and she stopped eating long enough to turn towards him and let him have it over his choice of a dress. When she did, she got a good look at Kiba and Akamaru.
You're my sister's teammate, aren't you?
Hina's sister? Kiba said once he had gotten a good look at her. He had seen Hanabi before, he just hadn't met her. How she had managed to run in with Naruto was beyond him, though.
How'd you end up hanging out with this bum?
Hanabi shook her head with a frown on her face.
Big brother Naruto isn't a bum. He's really cool, actually.
She's up with a smile.
He's saying sorry for hurting me.
You hurt Hinata's little sister? Kiba asked Naruto, at this point kind of hoping that it wasn't the case. At least, not enough of a case for the little girl to take it up with the rest of her clan, because of who her father was.
You're gonna get your ass.
It was an accident, Naruto grumbled. Look at her, she's fine, and I'm apologizing and being nice. You don't have any complaints about me, do you, little firecracker? He asked Hanabi, who had gone back to eating her ramen in a respectable manner. She stopped when he asked this question, though.
I wish you stopped calling me by that name.
Naruto shook his head firmly. Not happening, little lady. He said as Teuchi set a bowl of ramen in front of him.
Thanks a lot, Teuchi.
The man chuckled and gave Naruto a nod at the boy's grateful response. He then turned towards Kiba and spoke to him. And what will you and your dog have, young man? He asked, completely understanding the Inuzuka bond with their ninja hounds. Kiba gave him a small smile and waved him off.
Not for us yet. We're waiting for some people to arrive before we get anything to eat.
Thanks anyway, though. You got people coming? Naruto asked while simultaneously digging into his food with vigor. A nod and a small laugh came from Kiba. Yeah, my team's been working on our own all week, and we decided to link back up today for a small meeting. I chose here to meet for lunch, so yeah. At that moment, he sniffed the air and was able to distinguish a scent through the delicious smelling air. Speaking of my team, I didn't think you'd go in before your teammates arrived, Kiba. Hey, Kurenai-sensei, Kiba said, turning around his stool to face the pretty red-eyed lady, and waved to her while Akamaru let out an excited bark. Naruto, on the other hand, was frozen in his seat with chopsticks and ramen stuck in his mouth. Hanabi noticed this and started poking at him to try and get him to react.
I was gonna wait outside, but then I found this guy inside and decided to say hey.
Kurenai gave her most boisterous student a smile at the welcome and saw who was sitting next to him.
Oh, well hello Naruto. How are you?
She greeted to the blonde jinchuriki.
I am not smoking, Kurenai-sensei, ma'am!
Naruto suddenly exclaimed, almost startling Hanabi out of her seat at his loud proclamation. Kurenai raised an eyebrow at his random outburst. That's good? Okay, smoking was pretty distasteful, but if that's how he was reacting to her sudden presence, then maybe she went a little overboard trying to make him break the habit, especially since the attempt backfired anyway. Hearing that Kurenai was not present to break his balls over smoking, Naruto let out a sigh of relief and went back to eating while Hanabi gave him a look of, what the hell was that? Over what had just happened.
Kiba? Kurenai-sensei?
A delicate voice filtered through everyone's ears as Hinata stepped inside the ramen stand. She greeted her sensei and her first teammate with a smile, until her eyes panned over to Naruto who was still eating.
Naruto-kun.
At that point, she noticed the little girl sitting next to him, waving at her.
Hanabi-chan? Hi, big sis Hinata!
Hanabi greeted her older sister with a sly smile before pointing at Naruto.
Look who I found.
Remembering what Hanabi had been asking her about from time to time, and then seeing Naruto turn around in confusion, after finishing his food only to smile and wave at her, Hinata turned bright red, getting Hanabi to roll her eyes as she had expected this much. At least she was still conscious at this point, but that was probably because there was a good 4 or 5 feet of distance between them. In an effort to get herself under control, Hinata directed her attention to her little sister.
Hanabi-chan, what are you doing outside the clan compound without our father? I was bored, and father wasn't around to train me. He was busy today, so I just left.
Hanabi answered lamely.
I found Big Brother Naruto walking around the village and followed him to the forest, and he caught me.
She said, embarrassed at admitting such. She was supposed to be a powerful heiress of the clan, with a Byakugan even more powerful than her sisters.
Then he said he would buy me lunch, so I said okay.
Naruto grinned at Hinata after Hanabi had recounted how she ran across him in the first place. Yeah, I'm a giving man. All I do is give. Hinata's blush at being spoken to by Naruto went unnoticed by him as he turned to elbow Kiba jokingly in the side. Just like the ass kicking I'm going to give everybody during the finals. Kiba turned to Naruto and got in his face at the challenge.
I've already told you, damn it. You ain't gonna beat me in Akamaru. We're gonna put you down.
Kurenai shook her head and held back a smile at the banter, as she was to be the responsible adult in the situation and was prepared to keep the clash between the two hotheads from escalating.
This disguise is highly illogical. Why, you ask? Because a rock is not a perfect square.
Hearing about a square rock made Naruto sigh as he paid for himself and Hinabi and went outside. Everyone's attention was then directed outside where Shino was standing with his hands in his pockets staring down at the box painted like a rock with eye holes in it.
Get out of here, weird guy!
The box hissed slowly.
Gonna blow my cover!
Shino raised an eyebrow at being called weird by a person in the box.
If this is your cover, I consider it blown already, my friend.
Naruto just stared at the rock with a dry look on his face before slowly pulling out his machete and speaking in a fake acting voice. Oh look, a rock. I wonder if it's the kind that I can sharpen my weapon on. Let's find out by hitting it repeatedly with my razor-sharp machete. Kiba caught on to what Naruto was doing and grinned. Hey Akamaru, I don't think we trained enough this morning. How about we break one more rock for good measure? And look, there's a rock right there. Isn't that convenient? Naruto raised his machete over his head with an evil look in his eyes, and Kiba cracked his knuckles with a similar look in his, until the rock finally exploded in a large, colorful puff of smoke.
Why can't I ever get the gunpowder right?
The smoke cleared, allowing Naruto to see Konohamaru on the ground before he stood up and pointed at Naruto directly.
Boss, fight me!
He demanded. Everyone just stared between Naruto and the small boy pointing at Naruto and taking note of the similar goggles on both their heads. Naruto just stood in place until he suddenly yelled, "Damn it, Konohamaru, go to school!" Everyone facepalmed due to it being Sunday, a day off for students.
No way!
Konohamaru yelled back.
You're gonna be a Chunin, so if I can beat you, then I don't need to go to school. They can make me a Chunin right now.
He pulled out a shuriken and held it at the ready.
Get ready, boss, because today's the day you lose.
He threw the shuriken at Naruto, and it was actually on target. Shino had been watching curiously as to why the Hokage's grandson wanted to fight Naruto. Kiba had been holding back his own laughter the entire time. Hinata had been looking between them nervously. Hanabi wondered how all this had even started, and when Konohamaru pulled out the shuriken, Kurenai's latent instincts made her want to walk over to Konohamaru, slap the weapon out of his hand, and scold her for playing with weapons. But then, he threw it. Naruto used his machete to deflect the shuriken and marched up to the now scared Konohamaru before grabbing him by the collar and wrapping him on the top of the head with the handle of the weapon.
Don't throw deadly weapons in public, damn it! Especially not at friends,
he said as he let him go.
You blocked it anyway, so what's the big deal?
Konohamaru grumbled before Kurenai held out her hand in front of Konohamaru's face and caught the falling shuriken that Naruto had redirected. He slowly turned towards the stern-looking lady that he was sure was going to confiscate his shuriken now.
Oh, that's the big deal.
Kurenai spun the shuriken around by the circle in the middle of it. Using ninja tools and jutsu is a frowned upon practice in village streets. Frowned upon, but not forbidden.
You should save things like this for the academy.
Konohamaru pouted at being admonished.
School sucks.
Hanabi frowned and crossed her arms over her chest.
Stop being a brat,
she said to the slightly older boy. How, she wished she could go to the academy instead of being stuck in the dojo with her father all day for training. This directed Konohamaru's attention towards the girl that was the closest to his age.
And who are you?
he said before pointing at Kurenai. I know her cause she's Uncle Asuma's. He felt low killing intent from the Jonin and switched up what he was saying. Comrade. He tested, and once the killing intent dropped, he knew he was safe. Yeah, she's his comrade. But you, I don't know. His adolescent brain began to work and put things together to make sense in his own mind. Little girl, his age, hanging out with Naruto in what seems to be his spare time. Calls him Big Brother Naruto and seems to value his opinion and point of view. Suddenly, Konohamaru ran at Naruto, flailing punches only to be stopped by Naruto's hands on his forehead. Boss, you jerk! You had me replaced? I just started going to the academy. It's not like I just disappeared. How could you? Naruto kept holding the boy back from possibly trying to punch at his privates. What are you babbling about? Are you upset about little firecracker? Stop calling me that! Hanabi snapped at Naruto before regaining her mostly stoic demeanor. Once eyes fell on her due to the outburst. Please. You gave her a nickname? Konohamaru shuddered as he stopped struggling and sank to his knees, prior to having a large stream of tears pouring down his eyes. You didn't give me a nickname. What makes her better than me, boss? She's a girl, he said, getting Hanabi to glare at him. We're both dudes. We can do dude stuff that you can't do with a girl. Naruto stared him down with a twitching eye. Me and you definitely can't do dude stuff, because you're still too young to know what dude stuff is supposed to even mean. He then blinked in realization. As a matter of fact, I'm still too young to know what dude stuff is supposed to mean. Damn it, Sensei, you and your damn book. I'm down for dude stuff. Kiba chimed in informatively, raising his hand before Kurenai, Shino, and Hinata looked at him, putting him on the spot. What? Dude stuff is great. Watch, he said before giving Shino several good-natured punches on the arm with a grin on his face. See? Dude stuff. Shino just stared back at Kiba expressionlessly. Don't do that, he said plainly in a way that sent shivers down the other spines. Konohamaru ignored this and pointed at Hanabi. That's it! I'm not letting myself get replaced like some rusty kunai! I'll fight you for the spot as boss's number 2! Hanabi looked at the boy before her lips quirked in a momentary smile. Why would he even want the number 2 that just wants to fight him and beat him up? Shut up! Konohamaru shouted, blushing in embarrassment. You're going down for the count! There's no way you can beat me! My name is Sarutobi Konohamaru, and as a future Hokage, I won't lose here! Hanabi just smirked and stood in her fighting stance. Well, my name is Hyuga Hanabi, and you aren't going to have much of a choice in the matter in just a moment. She was actually excited to test her training on someone in an actual fight. All of teammate was just staring at Naruto, who shrugged at what was going on with the children standing between him. He didn't know what to say to them. What can I say? I guess kids just love you for some reason. I'll beat you in one shot, Konohamaru said as he formed the Ram Seal. If you're really boss's number 2, you've got his special technique down by now, right? Hanabi figured it was Naruto's echolocation jutsu and covered her eyes, prepared to try and fight blind without her Byakugan if necessary. Oh shit, I don't like the sound of that, Naruto thought to himself, as there had to be only one thing that he had taught Konohamaru in the time that they had spent together. Konohamaru waited too little, too late. Sexy jutsu! In a puff of smoke, Konohamaru transformed into a very attractive new brunette woman that winked seductively from a rather provocative pose. How do you like this? Kiba's nose started gushing blood on top of Akamaru's head. I like it a lot, he said with a wolfish grin on his face. Shino stayed unchanging, but due to his high collar, most people couldn't see the blood trickling from his own nose. Hinata poked her fingers together rather tentatively, unable to even look at the mortified Naruto, who couldn't believe Konohamaru's complete lack of situational judgment, as he directly ignored the fact that he had done the same jutsu in public in the past without hesitation. Naruto-kun really taught you that jutsu? There was no way her Naruto would ever come up with something so sleazy, right? Konohamaru then suddenly transformed back when he noticed that Hanabi wasn't even looking at him. Hey, open your eyes! How is my awesome jutsu gonna beat you if you're not even looking at it? If it would beat me, then why would I look at it, stupid? Hanabi said in a teasing voice as she kept her eyes closed, prepared to try and use her other senses to fight. She was blissfully unaware of the chaos going on around her at the moment, though. Why can't I ever beat anybody with a jutsu? Konohamaru asked for a shadow passed over him, getting him to look up at a rather furious-looking Kurenai. Now, Konohamaru, Kurenai said in a deceptively sweet tone, even though the small boy saw the aura of a devil over her. Tell me again. Who taught you a jutsu like that? Konohamaru pointed a shaky finger at Naruto, who was standing still nearby. I see, Kurenai said before turning towards Naruto with the same sugary tone of voice and pleasant look on her face. Naruto, I think you and I should have a talk about things that are appropriate and things that you should and shouldn't pass on to children. Naruto took a step back and put up his only defense that he had been saving for over several years. I never had parents or guardians to teach me tact, and when he saw Kurenai's red eyes soften momentarily in some sort of maternal empathy, he almost fist pumped in victory. Almost, because it still didn't work, but left him with his other out. I'll see you guys during the exams though, he hurriedly said as he made the Ram Seal and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kurenai blinked at Naruto's sudden disappearance before snapping her fingers once she remembered. Oh, I forgot he could do that. Deciding to let the matter end since chasing him all over the village wouldn't have looked good at all. With that, she decided to escort her team inside. Hanabi stared at where Naruto had been now that Naruto was gone. Wow, Big Brother Naruto is kind of fast. Yeah, he is, Konohamaru said in agreement. I'm still his number 2 though. I don't really care, Hanabi said in a loud and dismissive manner. But on the inside, she was sticking her tongue out at Konohamaru. She was the number 2, damn it. She was way better than him. End of chapter 22.